Hashem. This week's parsha is Parshas Noach, and I wanted to look at closely and read closely a passage from the parsha, which is a very, very cryptic passage, a very controversial passage, has been cited, miscited, misunderstood, and it's very, very important passage to revisit and to study closely together. So this is the passage of what Noach does after he leaves the ark, and it ends up being, the curse of Ham. Well, maybe it's not even the curse of Ham. Maybe it is the curse of Canaan, actually. So that's what I wanted to focus on. So it says, let's first read the psukim, and after we read the psukim, it's not that many psukim to talk about here. It's around 10 psukim, and then after we read the psukim, we'll look at the Rashi and some of the Midrash and some of the commentaries on it, the classic commentaries. So it's chapter 9, verse 18. Okay, if Rabbi Yosef was here, I would make him the co-host and he could share the screen, but since he's not here, I'll just follow along. So it says, Vayu b'nei Noach, the children of Noach, hayotzim min hateva, left the ark, were Shem, Ham, and Yafet, and Ham is the father of Canaan. So this is already calling our attention, because why are we being told that Ham is the father of Canaan? Normally we say it the opposite way in the Torah. We say Canaan is the son of Ham. And here we're being told at the very beginning. So then it says, Shlosha Ela b'nei Noach. These three are the children of Noach. Umei Ela nafta kol. It's from them the whole world scattered, or the whole world came forth from these three. Now, this is preceding the passage which appears in chapter 11, which is that the whole world was scattered as a result of the Tower of Babylon. But here we're saying that the whole world is coming from Shem, Ham, and Yafet. Vayachal Noach ish adama. The word Vayachal is also an unusual word here. It couldn't mean literally that Noach just was a man of the field and he began to work, but that's not the way the commentaries take it. We'll see what it means. Vayita karam, and he planted a vineyard. Is there anything wrong with planting a vineyard? Not necessarily. There is not necessarily something wrong with planting a vineyard. We might think, oh, the vineyard is to get wine, and so that's, he wants to be drunk. But it could also mean that was what they did. They planted vineyards. That was their staple of what they drank in those days. Rabbi Yosef, I made you the co-host. If you want to share the screen, we're doing chapter 9, verse 18. If you have the ability to share the screen, that would be great. Otherwise, we'll make do without it, obviously. Vayesh min hayayin.
No, I'm walking. Sorry.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
I'm walking.
Oh, okay, fine. All right, fine. Vayesh min hayayin. And so he drank from the wine, vayishkar. So Noach drank from the wine, and he became drunk. Vayitgol b'toch ohalo, and he revealed himself in the middle of his tent. But this is an unusual word because ohalo, it's pronounced ohalo. We have this discussion in the Daf Yomi for today, that there are certain words that we read the way they're written, and there are other words we read the way they're pronounced. This is a classic case of it being written one way and pronounced a different way. If you look at the Hebrew says betoch aleph hey lamed hey. So what is aleph hey lamed hey? Aleph hey lamed hey is not his tent, but her tent. But the way it is read with as though it was his tent. So we'll have to come back to that Rashi and explain it. And then there are other commentaries that explain perhaps why it's written aholo. Vayar Cham Avi Canaan, et ervat aviv. And so Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father. What does it mean that he saw the nakedness of his father? What does that even mean? So we'll come back to that text. We'll see how Rashi understands it. And he told it to his two brothers outside. Why is he going to tell them about the nakedness of his father? And Shem and Yefet, the two other brothers, they took the garment. They put it on their shoulders. They walked in backwards. They covered up the nakedness of their father. And their face was backwards. They did not see the nakedness of their father. Noach woke up from his wine. He knew what he knew what his son, who was the youngest son, had done to him. Well, first of all, who was the youngest son? Ham is not the youngest son. So why does it say he knew what the youngest son had done to him? That seems inaccurate. And also, it didn't say that they actually did anything to him. It said that they were laughing at him. This makes it sound like they actually did something to him. And so then it says that he curses Canaan. Vayomer our Canaan, Eved Avadim Yelechav. He says, cursed be Canaan. Who's Canaan? Canaan is the son of Noach's son Ham. So he curses Canaan. So why is Canaan being cursed? He should curse if Ham did something to him. If the youngest son who did something is Canaan, then he should actually be cursed. If the one who did something to him is Ham, then he should be cursing Ham. Why is Canaan being cursed? And he curses him and he's saying, Eved Avadim Yelechav, you will always be a slave to you, his brother. Eved Avadim, a servant of servants, he will be for his brother. How does that match anything? Vayomer Baruch Hashem Elokei Shem, and then he blesses Shem. Vayi Canaan Eved Lamo, and Canaan will be a servant to him forever. He says, Yafta Okim Yefet. He says, which is Rashi says, we'll have to see what that means, but means it was a praise of Yefet. Vayishkon bo'olei Shem will dwell in the tents of Shem. Vayi Canaan Eved Lamo, and Canaan will be a slave to them. So then the code of this paragraph is that Vayichi Noach achar Mabul. Noach lived after the Mabul for 350 years, and he lived a total of 950 years, and he died. So let me just pause for a moment and see if anybody has questions about this passage before. What are some clear questions that arise? And then we can look at how Rashi interprets it, and then we'll see some other provocative explanations. So first of all, does anybody have any questions about this paragraph? Anything comes to mind? Okay, so everyone is waiting for me to ask the questions. Fair? Okay, so let's look at Rashi's explanations of this text. So first of all, let's go back to chapter 9, verse 20. Vayachel Noach ish adama. So, excuse me. V'cham hu avi Canaan. Why does it tell us that Cham was the father of Canaan? So Rashi says, why does it need to say it here? Because the passage is going to deal about the drunkenness of Noah. And that's where Cham sinned. V'al yado miskael Canaan. And as a result of that, Canaan was cursed. And since we have not yet written the lineage of Cham, and we wouldn't have known that Canaan was his son, therefore it needs to tell us that the fact that Cham was the father of Canaan. So basically Rashi is saying it's just introductory to the story. Vayachel. So Rashi interprets the word Vayachel Noach as a negative thing, that he should have engaged Asat Melchun. The fact that the first thing he planted was a vineyard was something very bad. It's like if there was a, God forbid, devastation of the earth, and you say, okay, the first thing we're going to do is open a bar. That's what Noach did. Rashi says, Asat Melchun. He should have done a different planting first, and he didn't do this other planting. He should have done that other planting first. The Gemara in Sanhedrin says, "Vayachel Noach darash over Galilah." He says, "Yud Gimel Vavin." There are 13 times says a Vav by Yayin. It says Vayachel, Vayita, Vayesh, Vayishkar, Vayitgal, Vayar, Vayage, Vayikach, Vayasinu, Vayachu, Vayachusu, Vayiketz, Vayeda. Mean to say that there were that the word Vav appears as in this paragraph 13 times before a verb demonstrating Noach's relationship with wine. It says that he planted he set out, he planted the wine, he drank, he got drunk, he revealed himself, and he saw, and he told, and he took, and they placed, and they went. So what does it mean, the 13 Vavs? So the Vav, the way you say oy 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 in Rabbinic Hebrew is vai vai. So whoa whoa, meaning to say that you put the Vavs together. So Rashi, so basically what we're saying here is that he brought this on himself by planting the wine. He put himself in this terrible position. But it's, again, I want to go back and say it's not necessarily a bad thing to plant wine. First of all, we need the wine. Wine was what they drank. They didn't drink water. Water was dangerous to drink back then because they didn't have a way of keeping out the harmful bacteria. So they drank wine. That was the drink, and it was a staple of society. Also, you need wine for the sacrifices. You need wine for the mitzvot. So it's not necessarily intuitively for sure a bad thing. But nevertheless, the rabbis are very suspicious of this action that Noach did. The Baal HaTurim says that the word Vayita that Noah planted reminds us of two other plantings. It says Vayita Karem, that Noach here planted a vineyard, and twice else it says Vayita. Anybody know where else it says that phrase Vayita? Appears 3 times in the Tanakh, the word Vayita. Anybody know where else? Okay, I'll share with you since I have the answer book in front of me because I have the Baal HaTurim. It says Vayita Hashem Elokim Gan Be'eden. God planted the garden in Eden. God made the Garden of Eden. Vayita Eshel. And also by Abraham, it says that Abraham planted an Eshel tree right before the binding of Isaac, and he did this as hospitality. And so this is what the Midrash says, that where did Noah get the grapevines? Wasn't everything destroyed? Where did he get the grapevines to plant? So the Midrash says that Noah found a grapevine that had been kicked out of the Garden of Eden, and it had the clusters of grapes still attached to it. And he tasted its fruits and found them very pleasing. So he decided to plant a vineyard with them. I want to just stop for a moment and talk about the significance of this midrash. That there were 3 places where that we have the planting, and Noach's planting is bookended by these other 2, by Garden of Eden and by Abraham. And the way I think we could understand this passage is, what was Noach? Again, remember we said, what was the fruit of the tree of knowledge? That the first opinion in the Talmud is that it was a grapevine. That was what God had told him, don't eat from. So one of the things we could speculate is that what was Noach trying to do after this incident after the flood that destroyed the world. What was Noach trying to do? He was trying to recreate the Garden of Eden. He was trying to recreate the Garden of Eden. And who could blame him? He said the world was destroyed once we got thrown out of the Garden of Eden. We need to recreate the Garden of Eden. How can he say that? Basically, he's planting the vineyard. And what does he do? He drinks from the wine and he goes into the tent. He became uncovered in the tent. Now, think about that. Who else would have eaten from the grapes and then become uncovered? Adam and Eve. So Noach is trying to go back in time. He's trying to go back into the Garden of Eden. He's trying to say we have to be like the Garden of Eden again. And that's perhaps what he was trying to do. But he obviously was misguided because the story doesn't end well for him. You can't, if you were to walk around today like you're in the Garden of Eden, people will ridicule you. But anyway, the approach of Noach was to go backwards. Whereas the approach of Abraham, when he did his planting, his approach was totally different. The Abraham planted an Ashel, which was the Gemara says two possibilities. One possibility, it was a special tree. The other possibility was like a pundak. It was like a hotel that he planted to allow people to come and partake in. But either way, the purpose of it was, to spread the word of Hashem, And so therefore, Abraham was not trying to go back into the Garden of Eden, but to spread the word of Hashem beyond the Garden of Eden. That's a fundamental difference between the approach of Noah and the approach of Abraham. And of course, Noah's approach did not work. But let's go back to the Rashis. We're still just reading these Rashis. Vayita Karam, and he planted. So Noach is called the Isha Adama. He's called the master of the land. Now remember, who was the one who had to work the land? Adam. Adam was supposed to be doing through the sweat of your brow, of to work the land. So Rashi tells us, where did he get the vineyard? I quoted you the Midrash that he found it kicked out of the Garden of Eden, but the Rashi gives us a different explanation. Rashi says, when he entered into the ark, that Rashi is basically saying that he planned for this. When he went into the ark, he already planned for this by bringing in the seeds for the grapes, or the branches, or the pruned grape tree. Even though God didn't tell him to do that, he prepared for this moment. Okay, so now we come to the next pasuk and see Rashi's explanation. And he drank from the wine, and he became revealed betoch ahalo. He became revealed in his tent. But like I said before, it's written with a hey, meaning to say it will be her tent. So Rashi tells us, ahalo ksiv, that it's written with a hey. Remez liyud shvatim. Rashi says this hints to the 10 tribes that are called Shenikra'u al Shem. Hold on one second. Shenikra'u al Shem Shomron, Shenikret Oholo, Shego al Eskei Yayin, Shenemar Hashotim b'Mizrakei Yayin. Rashi's approach is to say that it's written not with a vav, but with a hey, to remind us of the 10 tribes who were exiled because of the sins that they did with wine. We'll see more about that in a few moments. And the 10 tribes are called Aholo. So that's Rashi's explanation. I saw another explanation. Actually, I heard this from Rabbi Eitan Toker. He gave a beautiful shir about this on YU Torah, a very, very brilliant shir. And in his shir, he suggested that maybe he became revealed although in her tent, and it was a totally different reading of the story, that it was Noach and his wife. Noach became revealed in his wife's tent, and Ham, the son of Noach, wanted to show that he was stronger than his father by siring a child from Noach's wife. That's the way he reads this whole passage, and it's a very interesting reading. Actually, it's even persuasive from the actual text because it answers a number of questions. Why does he curse Canaan if Ham was the one who did the sin? So if Ham was the offspring of that union, that would make sense. Also, we'd have to explain why would somebody want to do this? Why would a child want to do this? Well, there's other examples in the Bible where a child tried to show his dominance by sleeping with his father's wife or a concubine. The two most famous examples are David and Avshalom. Avshalom slept with his father's concubines in front of the peoples for all the world to see that Avshalom was stronger than King David. And also Reuben did this to his father Jacob. So we know that this was a common way in which children demonstrated that they were the master of the tribe. And so this would explain why, how Noach understood that he had to curse Canaan. And then when it says, he says he understood what his youngest son had done, he understood that is a reference to Shem, that Shem had tried to protect him. Anyway, that's a provocative reading of the text that if you want to hear the whole shir, you should go to Rabbi Tokeir. He gives a beautiful shir about it. So let me just before we go into the next pasuk, I want to just point out two texts from here about this pasuk. One is the Baal Turim, and one is the Gemara in Brachos. First, we'll say the Gemara in Brachos. It says he drank. Rabbi Meir says the tree that Adam ate from was the grapevine. And this is the proof, because there's nothing that brings sadness and pain to the world greater than wine. Wine has the ability to cause more sadness and greatness and pain in the world. And indeed, the Baal Turim says something similar. Baal Turim says, "Vayitkal b'toch aholo." He became revealed in his tent. Says the Baal Turim, Otiot Galiot. The word Vayitkal, that Noah became revealed in his tent, can also mean, if we rearrange the letters, we could take the word Vayitkal and make it into Galiot, into exile, and say that he became exiled. So what does that mean? Shego berosh goim ayidei yayin. Because of the fact that the people of Israel, as Rashi said, and Judah, because they had too much wine, they sinned and were exiled. And that's the pasuk, go berosh goim ayidei yayin. And the wine in the numerical value, the gematria of yayin is Yeroah, is wailing. And so this teaches us that wine is called wailing because it brings wailing to the world. It leads to promiscuity, which brings punishment. And yayin comes from the word taniyah, which is crying. So this is all, blaming this story on the fact that Noah drank. Of course, we could also take another approach and say, yeah, he had to drink too much, but look at what he saw. He saw the tremendous Holocaust around him. He saw the devastation, the destruction of the world. So he had to drink. I mean, are you gonna blame him after what he witnessed, that he couldn't face the reality of the world, that he had this tremendous, that his trauma didn't disappear just because he was saved? That most people, if you were given the opportunity right now, if somebody came over to you right now and you had to answer with utmost clarity, you have a choice. The whole world could be destroyed and you'll be saved. Which would you rather be? Part of the people who were killed or the one person who was saved? Most people, I think, would rather be the one who was killed and have to deal with the reality every day of being the only one who was saved from that world. That's just a tremendously daunting task. Okay, so now we go to the next pasuk. Vayar Vayar Cham of Canaan et Ervat Aviv, and Cham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father. Remember the approach I said before that what does it mean that they saw the nakedness of his father? So classically, the way this is read is that he saw his father naked. But the other way to understand this is that in the Torah, the way Ervat Aviv would usually be understood is his father's nakedness refers to his father's wife, the one who the father is naked with, and that's his wife. And so that goes back to the approach Rabbi Toker said that Cham was siring a child through his father's wife. But anyway, it says here, Cham, so Rashi says, what does this mean that he saw the nakedness of his father? And he told his two brothers outside. What does that mean? It means the following. It means the following. Yesh mi Rabosenu omrim, Canaan ra'av v'higidu aviv. Because there's a huge problem with this text, is how come Canaan is the one who was cursed? How come Canaan is the one who was cursed here when Cham is the one who did something wrong? So the text says that Cham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father. The Rashi says, actually what happened was Canaan saw it and told to his father. And therefore, therefore he is the one who is, Cham is the one who is mentioned because he saw it, and that's why he's cursed. Ultimately, Canaan is cursed because he's the one who ran to tell his father. That is a little bit of a difficult reading because that's not what the actual text says. The text says that Cham saw it, Cham, the father of Canaan. That's the approach that Rashi cites in the name of the Midrash. Hold on one second. Here. So I just want to state very briefly, there's 4 different explanations about what the problem is here. That first of all, the sin was that he should have looked away. If you see somebody in an embarrassing moment, you're supposed to look away. His Sforno says that Cham saw the way in which Canaan had disrespected his father. We'll see in a few moments what that was. But Cham saw this, and what did he do? He went and told his brothers outside. This also highlights, I should mention that you have these moments in life where you see something terrible going on or you see something good going on. You have an opportunity to make a difference. You have an opportunity to be a force for good or, God forbid, a force for bad. Cham saw his father in distress. And what was his response? His response was the response of Lashon Hara. The response wasn't, well, oh, I see my father in distress. Let me go to see how I can help him. Instead, he said, let me just say gossip about it. Let me say Lashon Hara about it. This is the problem. So that was the issue. Hold on one second. Okay, Baruch Hashem. Okay, so what happens next in the text? The text says, Vayikach Shem Vayefet Es HaSimla. So Shem and Yefet took the garment. So Shem and Yefet took the garment. Vayathimu al Shechem Shneihem, and they placed it on their shoulders. Vayachu achoranit, and they walked backwards. Vayachasu et ervat avim, they covered up the nakedness of their father. Upneim achoranit, their face was backwards, and they did not see the nakedness. Ervat avihem lo ra'u. So let's look at what Rashi says here. When it says, first of all, that they saw the nakedness of their father, what does that mean? Vayar et ervat aviv. I share with you the explanation, which is not the usual explanation. The usual explanation is Rashi's explanation. There are 2 possibilities citing the Bereshit Rabbah about what he did to his father. Some say sarso, some say he castrated him, and some say rivo, that he assaulted him sexually. So those are the two theories that the Gemara. Well, Gemara says he castrated him, and the Midrash Bereshit Rabbah says that he assaulted him, because otherwise we have to say that he didn't act. And Gemara in Sanhedrin also has both of these theories, that Rav Shmuel Chad Amar Sar. So one says he castrated him, Chad Amar Rivo. One says he assaulted him. According to the one, says the Gemara, who says that he castrated him. So as Rashi will say elsewhere in a couple of psukim, because he says, you prevented me from having a fourth child, I'll curse your fourth child. And according to the one who says that he assaulted him, because it says here Vayar, and also by Dina, the assault on Dina, it says Vayarota Shem ben Hamor, that Shem, the son of Hamor, saw her. And that was also a Canaanite. And so we see, and also the word Shechem appears here, Vayasimu al Shechem Shneihem. And there is this link between the sexual assaults of the Canaanites here on their father and later on Jacob's daughter. And it's the attempt to tell us that these are people we should not have any relationship with whatsoever, because these are people who basically violate the laws of sexuality, and either they have sexual assault on their father, or they have sexual assault on people's minor daughters, which is what they did in the case of Dina. And that's the theory. The other theory is the castration is hold on one second. Is there no support for these explanations? Well, there is support. There is support. It's not complete support. I mean, the hint in the text is, first of all, it says he knew what his son had done to him when he woke up. So that implies that he was able to tell, right when he woke up, he was able to tell that he had been violated in some way. That's what the verse says in verse 24. It says he knew what happened when he woke up. So in some way he was violated. That's the implication. It doesn't say it explicitly, but there's support. It might not be strong support, but there's support. The other explanation, okay, fair. That the other explanation is that it says the word Shem here, and the word Shem reminds us of the next time it appears, which is by the assault of Dinah, and so also a Canaanite, and that connection is definitely there, and so that's support for this reading. So the verse says, "Vayikach." So Noach. So anyway, as I was saying before, that the idea is that we're being warned, and Abraham says this: do not take a daughter for my son from amongst the Canaanites. The Canaanites are the people who are not allowed to marry. Well, why? Well, right here we're being given insight that the Canaanites do not obey the laws of sexual ethics, that they violate their father and they violate their neighbor's daughters. So back to Rashi, Vayikach Shem Vayeveth, and it says Shem and Yefeth took the simwa. Shem and Yefeth took the simwa. It doesn't say Vayikhu, that they both took it, rather in the singular, Vayikach in the singular, that only one of them took it. So this teaches us that Shem was the one, Rashi says, who was involved in the mitzvah more than Yefet. Therefore, he merited to have the mitzvah of tzitzis. Lakach zachu banav letawas shel tzitzis. Why do Shem's children, we're descendants of Shem, why do they get the mitzvah of tzitzis? Because he's the one who took this garment and covered up Yefet, and covered up Noach with it. And Yefet merited to have the burial of his children. As it says, he merited burial for his children. It says, Atein l'gog makom sham kuvar. And Ham, who disrespected his father, it says that he also Says about his seed, Canaan Hagmel Hashor et Shavi Mitzrayim et Galut Kush Naremus Kenim Arum V'Yachet V'Chashuf Yishe. Meaning to say that his children, who are Cush and Mitzrayim, were sent into exile barefoot because he was the one who disrespected his father. As a result of this, his children were given this tremendously bad punishment. So I want to just go back hold on 1 second. Just want to say 1 second about this pasuk hold on 1 second. I want to see one thing. Okay. So then, why does it say their face was backwards? Why does it say this the second time? Because it already says that they walked in backwards. It says it says they walked in backwards and their face was backwards. Why does it have to say it twice? This teaches us that even though they walked in backwards, but they still respected the dignity of the father, that when they had to turn around to pick him up or to cover him, they still turned their face backwards. That at every single moment, they treated him with dignity. Okay, what does Rashi say on the next verse? Vayikatz Noach miyeno. Noach woke up from his slumber, and he knew that which his younger son had done to him. But here too, it's difficult because Ham is not the youngest son. So what does it mean he knew what his youngest son? If we adopt the approach that Rabbi Tokeyer takes, it's also difficult because he knew what his youngest son had done to him. Ham is not the youngest son. So Rashi tells us that the word katan here does not mean youngest. This is a little bit of a force, but you have no choice. But the word katan here is a description of his actions, meaning the child who was desecrated, who was bazoi, meaning to say, like I made you small amongst the nations. He knew what his small child had done. Not that the child was in age small or in birth order small, but that he was small in his deeds. He was his son who was unworthy. He knew what his unworthy son had done. And so now he cursed Canaan. Vayomer Arur Canaan. So Noach curses Canaan. He says, Eved Avadim Yelecha. Again, we have this fundamental question that's jumping out at us. Why is Canaan the one being cursed? He says, cursed to be Canaan. You are a servant he shall be a servant to his brothers. Says Rashi, why does he curse Canaan? You caused me. Shlo oid ben revi'i acher. You caused me that I can't give birth to another fourth child to serve me. Arur bincha revi'i. I am going to curse your fourth son. V'yot mishamesh et zaram shel elu. I'm going to curse your fourth son to meaning to say that Noach said, I was going to have a fourth son, and that fourth son was going to be able to take care of me. So since I no longer have a fourth son who's going to take care of me, your fourth son is going to be a servant to the other ones who are greater than him. And so therefore, since now I'm going to have to do my work, now he's going to also be a servant. Umara Ham Shasar. So why did Ham castrate his father? Of course, even before Freud, we're seeing basically the idea that the Torah recognizes the primal instinct of sons to overthrow their father and to castrate their father. So what did Ham see that caused him to want to castrate his father? He said to his brothers, Adam had two sons, and one of them killed each other, so that he could inherit the whole world. And our father has three sons, and he's now requesting a fourth. It's not going to work. So therefore, what basically motivated him at this point was just total greed. He says, I don't want to have to divide the world into quarters. They'd rather only divide into thirds. And so that caused them that's what do children fight over when it comes to inheritance? They often fight over money. And that's what this fight was about. So hold on one second. Excuse me. Okay. So now he says, the next pasuk tells us, Vayomer Baruch Hashem Okeshem. And he said, blessed be God. Blessed Hashem, the God of shame. What does that mean? He said that in the future, Rashi says this is a reference to the fact that this is the reason why Canaan is losing the land, even more than the fact he's always going to be a slave. Now he praises God that God should keep his promise and give to the Jewish people the land of Canaan. Rashi says, and Canaan became an eternal tax, eternal servant, have to pay tribute to the Jewish people at all times. So just cite one more midrash here, and then we'll go to some Hasidic explanations. The midrash tells us Shabo b'nei Africa adunim Yisrael that the children of Africa came to fight with the Jewish people, and they said, Eretz Canaan Shalanuhi. And this is an old fight. We're fighting about this today in the world. Who has the land of Canaan? That the Jewish people say is us. And the Africans came along and say, listen, you don't look like us. We're the ones who have the land of Canaan. The Bnei Africa, according to the Gemara in Sanhedrin, they said the land of Canaan is ours. And it says, Eretz Canaan l'Gvuloto, Canaan Avurnu. And Canaan is our father. Why do they think Canaan is their father? So they think Canaan is their father because they're dark-skinned. And the Talmud elsewhere says that he was cursed with dark skin. So Amrohem Gavia ben Pesisa. So there was a man there named Gavia ben Pesisa. He says, Or Canaan Eved Avadim Yelachav. Eved Shekan Nechasim, Eved Lami Nechasim Lami. And so they said, no, we are the ones, who you're supposed to be the servants to. But we see from here that this was part of a major polemic that's been going on between the Jewish people and their neighbors now for, it seems like to us, time immemorial. At this point, going back to the creation of man, and then the Noach story, and we're being told that the Jewish people are fighting over who has the rights to the land of Canaan. And even though the land is called Canaan, and this might really be the ultimate purpose of this story being told here, even though the land is called Canaan, we're being told that Canaan is supposed to be our servant, and so therefore we're supposed to get the land. Anyway, we see from this story, just on the literal explanations. First of all, it's a very confusing story. We're not sure exactly why Canaan is being cursed. We're not sure exactly what was done to Noach. And a couple of people pointed out, no, it doesn't say that in the text. And we're also not sure what the point of this story is. So I was trying to give a little bit of some insight into it. Maybe it's to tell us the struggles Noach had moving on with the world. Maybe it's to tell us about the directionlessness that Noach had, or maybe the point of the story is to tell us why Canaan was the one why Canaan is not able to maintain control over the land, why he lost the land. Just before we go to some Hasidic explanations, I want to pause in case somebody has any comments that they want to share. I'll be happy to address. So let me just add one more commentary on this. It's comes from the Otzer HaMachshavas Chasidus. And I'm going to read this to everybody, and then I'll see what we say. It says, the Torah tells us, not only in this passage, stories in a simple manner, and also sometimes in a very physical manner. So why did the Torah tell us these stories in this very simple and physical manner? So the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of Hasidus, explain this via parable. So there was a king who sent his son to a faraway land, a land that was very far away. So the king intended that his son will be tested with many afflictions, so that afterwards he'll really appreciate the delights of the palace. So many days passed, month after month, and in the length of time, the prince totally forgot about all the delights, and he got used to life in the new land. And when the king sent for him to bring him back home, he didn't want to go. And we sent a second message, he again didn't want to go. So there was one officer there who gave advice to the king. He said, "Let me be the one to go." So he went, and he dressed in simple garments, similar to the son of the king, the prince, and he spoke to him in his language, came close to him, until in the end he was able to bring him to the king. And so said the Baal Shem Tov, our Torah could have told us these ideas in a deep manner, but it has to tell us in a manner that we could understand and we could relate to. And that's what in the end will bring us into the house of the king. So that's why the Torah doesn't say it in a deeper manner, because we wanted to be able to relate to these stories for many years, and only eventually would we be able to connect to it. I need to stop here, but I want to wish everybody Hashkoyach.